Hello, I'm Martyn Evans. I'm Creative Director of the property company U&I, and I'm Deputy Chair of the London Festival of Architecture. The object I'd like to nominate for LFA Digital is my favourite book, written in 1969 by my hero Jane Jacobs. This is it, The Economy of Cities. Now, it's not her most famous book, that's this one, The Death and Life of Great American Cities, that was written nearly 10 years earlier. But in my view, it's the greatest book ever written about how cities developed. I'm nominating it as a celebration of the power of ideas to change the way that we see the world. Jane Jacobs was born a little more than 100 years ago and started her career in journalism in New York in the midst of the Great Depression in the 1930s. When she moved to New York, she went to live in Greenwich Village, which she liked because it was so different from the rest of Manhattan with its famous grid structure. Her early journalism, investigating industrial decline in New York and its surrounding states, piqued her lifelong interest in understanding how cities function successfully. At a time of huge post-war development, she began to understand that development usually meant the death of community life on the street, something she saw as critical to the success of sustainable places. She called streets strips of chaos that have a weird wisdom of their own. In Death and Life, it was Jane who coined the terms social capital, mixed use, and her most famous phrase, eyes on the street, her description of the single biggest contributor to successful communities, people's engagement with each other at street level. Through the 1950s and 60s, these ideas played themselves out as she led the campaign to save Greenwich Village from redevelopment to high-rise housing blocks and a huge expressway that would have destroyed the neighbourhood. How the village is today is largely a result of the power of Jane's ideas to explain and celebrate messy, complex, mixed and unplanned places. But this book, published years after that fight was over, is, I think, her greatest work. It tells a story about how cities developed from pre-agricultural history, and it challenges the idea that agricultural innovation, which enabled cities to grow, happened not in the countryside, but in the cities themselves. She argues that cities, because of their density of population, diversity and ideas, were hotbeds of innovation, developed as a self-defense mechanism and feeding themselves with ideas and delivering opportunity to those in business to serve them. As we question our growing city's relationship with food once again, it would serve all of us concerned with creating sustainable communities well to dust off our copies of this genuinely thrilling book and get our eyes back on the street. Jane Jacobs, The Economy of Cities. Very powerful.